Right then, Kitten Project Part 2 this is. Here we are, sat in Math's garden, back garden.
Hi, I'm back.
Obviously the kitten is still on the drive at my house. Basically what's happened is the engine had to come out. You'll see this in the footage. I've had to do the video footage because Math went on holiday. Went touring around a few places, didn't you?
Yeah, all around UK.
Around UK. So, but there were a lot going on, and I didn't want to miss filming it, so I filmed it on my mobile phone, which is not as good, and I ended up doing it all in vertical or something, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, yeah, in vertical
so
video.
It looks a bit naff,
That's alright.
really, but at least it's been recorded. A lot of this recording is for me to look back on and see what's gone on and what's been done, but obviously we stick it on YouTube and see what sort of response we get to it. So it's going to be around about half an hour long after this intro. There's a lot of mobile footage, but some of that mobile footage is going to be saved for part 3 video because we didn't want this video to be too long, because it will get it on for being like 50 minutes long. I think it's a bit too long. So anyway, without further ado, we'll move now into my video footage. Right, here we are in the engine compartment. As we can see, all the cooling system has been removed. The water pump is missing because that was faulty. The radiator is out, all the plumbing pipes are out. That's where the heater are connected, so everything. The plan was to go to the Stratford-upon-Avon, Cortina and Anglia meet-up this weekend in this. But one of the problems I had, if we can get in there, is this engine mount. This engine mount just would not come out. The rubber had all gone soft, and this one on this side came out fine. You can't quite see where it goes in, but that one came out okay. This one just won't, and the only way to get that out is to get the engine out, and I can get inside there and I can attack it from all different angles. It's a bit of a good thing in a way because I'll be able to replace the core plug that's at the back of here, and I'll also be able to replace the drain plug down there because I broke that off. There's a drain plug that goes, the notorious on Reliant engines, you can't see it, but when I get this engine out there'll be another little clip and we can see things more clearly. One thing I did notice on the SU carburetor, if I go like this, see how nice that is, nice and smooth, just glides lovely. That's how it should be, but this had gear oil in it. I could tell because it was really stiff to move that and it was very slow to come back down, and when I removed this and smelt the oil, it had that distinctive unpleasant gear oil smell. Very thick. We're talking what, 18-90 weight for gear oil, and really it should be 20 weight for SU. You can buy proper oil from Berlin Fuels. I think it's a straight 20 weight oil. I've just used 3-in-1 oil, just normal standard 3-in-1, and now that operates a lot nicer. It'll be a bit more responsive on the throttle, but that's just a small point. So that's where we are in here. Then, ready to get the engine out. I have been very lucky in that I could borrow this engine hoist from somebody local to me. Thank you very much for that, mate. So we're ready to go. Now normally this is something that me and Math would probably film, or Math would film me attempting to do this. But like I say, he's away, tossing it off on holiday.
Here I am at Alton Towers overlooking the lake whilst Dave is taking his engine out. Just look at that view. This is the life.
I don't know. Can't get the staff. But the next shots should have this out. Right then, the engine is out. It is now sat here on the driveway. It wasn't without issue. It kind of helps, Dave, if you remove all the bolts. I couldn't get it out at one point. I had to go and have a cup of tea, and I wondered why won't it come out, and it's because I'd left one bolt still in there. right, it came apart quite easy once that were done. But the other issue I had is that it was very nice of the chap to lend me this. He did say that it leaked jack oil. And as we can see, it's leaked there, and I had to manually lift the engine out the last half foot. I got it to about so high, I got it to about this high, and I just had to lift the last half foot and rest it on the wing. It's a good job the wing, the paintwork isn't mint, isn't it? Because I won't bother if I scuffed it a little bit, because you know, as mentioned before, look at the state of it. But it's out, and let's have a look at what I'm going to do. This now probably wants replacing, this little plate. I'm going to replace this core plug. It is suspect because when I overheated, all the steam were coming out of here, but it never seemed to leak any water on the way home. The drain plug needs drilling out because I snapped it, look. It should be a reasonably easy fix, just got to be a little bit careful that I don't completely mangle this. I shall take this off and I shall inspect the clutch plate. Always, I've got one upstairs, it's not brand new but it's nearly new, a clutch plate, and I'm not a fan of these. I might just reuse this because it seemed to be working fine. I'm not really a fan of this type. I like the one with the fingers, but this was working alright, this clutch cover, so I'll inspect the plate and see what that's like. Just generally, I'm going to give it a bit of a clean up. I'll tighten all these bolts. I'll probably fit new gasket in here. Looking around this side, I shall inspect the spark plugs when I can find a spark plug spanner big enough, because this has got the larger heads. I've already fitted a brand new temperature sender because this terminal had broken off mine. That's brand new, that's already in. I shall take this timing cover off just to inspect and see the tensioner. There's like a little metal tensioner in there with a rubber pad, and sometimes the pad breaks off, but to be honest it didn't sound as though it were rattling about like that, but I'll have a look at it for the sake of a new gasket. This is going to get removed and a blanking plate fitted because I'm going to go with an electric fuel pump at the back of the kitten, and where it mounts at the back of the kitten, there just happens to be underneath the rear valance a couple of positive connections in the loom that are only live when the ignition's turned on, so that's handy. I've already fitted this T-piece, as you can see. That will go. This goes to my oil gauge, so that's already fitted. Obviously, I'm gonna drain the oil out. Should really have done that before I took this out, but I'll drain the oil, fit a new filter. I might take the sump off and just examine inside. But one thing I did do already, if I just take this rocker cover off, because I took the rocker cover off yesterday just to see if there was any mayonnaise or how dirty or filthy it was underneath. And look at that. It is really clean. It is like almost like new. It is so clean. There's no scorched oil on there. There's no sludgy build-up anywhere. That is really clean. The only issue that I can see is some of the valve stem oil seals. They're not sealing at the bottom. They're kind of gripping the shaft and going up and down with the valves. So I may take the plugs out and fit a new set of oil seals, because I've got a set. The ones that with the little springs that grip around the base. So I might do that. Obviously I'll have to reset all the tappets and torque this rocker shaft back up on the posts, but that is really clean. So that's a good sign, is that. That looks like it's been well looked after. Yeah, okay, let's crack on. Right, yeah, I've also been doing a little bit of painting and cleaning up of some of the, well, interior items, and including that fan that you've just seen that's in the engine bay. Now I know the intention is not to mint this up like the tricycle, but some of these parts were looking past their best. This is the inner cowling. This section here goes over the centre. The heater controls poke out of here. This part here, this part goes over your gear lever. I haven't painted the front because that gets all covered over by this part. Right, so All I've done is I've just painted down the sides where the footwells go. Now, the paint is actually decent quality. I haven't bothered rubbing it down and filling in the cracks. This is just a clean up. I bought 2 cans of Wilko black satin paint. Now I have to say, it were 2 cans for a tenner. I have to say that's one of the best quality paints that I've used. You know, you can pay a fortune for paint. And this cover, as you can see, goes when it's ready to go, and it goes over the front there. And again, a nice finish. What I had to do here, I had to repair inside with fiberglass where it were cracked. It were cracked in a couple of places. I filled in where there was a section missing and broken out of this part here, and I just filled it in. It's just quick and easy repairs. It's not perfect. It's not meant to look like new, but it's a lot better than it was. And this is the heater that goes in the engine. Obviously, it goes in the engine bay. Well, it's the fan. It blows fresh air in through the heater. It's not the heater itself. All this here was corroded, loads of surface corrosion, and all I've done is I've used one of those rust remedies. I think it's a Loctite one I've got. You just brush it on and it turns black, turns the rust into a different colour, neutralises it basically, and then I've just sprayed over it directly with that paint, and I've given the outside of the casing a bit of a going over. Again, not meant to look like new, but it does look a hell of a lot better than it did. There might be a few other little... I've got to do the ashtray. I still haven't done the ashtray for this part. That needs doing. Right. Here we are back inside the tricycle. The kitten. Force of habit there. The dashboard, I've given the dashboard a bit of a clean up. I don't know if you can tell how clean that is compared to what it was last time. The electrics are now 98% done. I say 98% because the indicators are still not exactly right. I did say that I'd bought a £3.50 unit from MotorSave that fixed the issue. And this is the unit that I bought, and it does work. The only problem is that flashes a lot faster than it should. It's not really right. I don't think it'd pass an MOT. It flashes too fast, but it does work. I could get away with it on the road. The indicators flash perfectly well, and the hazards flash perfectly fine, and they flash at the correct rate. So I'm just gonna have to see if I can find a way of sorting that out. It's possible that the flasher unit is faulty because the wiring for the indicators has to go through the flasher circuit. That's from what I found from my research. I have added an oil pressure gauge and a battery gauge. They're not plumbed in yet. The oil gauge isn't plumbed in, and we'll come to that reason shortly. The steering column, I don't know if you can see in here, the steering column, if I point out, I'm sorry for my amateurish camera work here. Right, I'll use this as a pointer. The bushes right in there, the inner bushes, I don't know if you can barely see them, between the column and the outer steel casing of the column. There are a couple of bushes, one at the top and one at the bottom, and this is what they look like. There's one of the old ones. They wear on the inside, they're just plastic, and they're a very, very tight interference fit. Basically, when I had to pull all the column out, steering column, I greased the outside of the new ones to help them go in, and then I greased the inside to help the steering column go in, but it was fine. Like I say, there's just plastic. Look, the other one, I can't find the other one. The other one were all broken around the outside as well, so that wasn't doing an awful lot. But if we look now, look at that now. When I get hold of that steering column now, that's a lot better than it was before, because I've also fixed inside round here. There's a big repair washer that is kind of still moving a touch, but it's a lot better than it was before. Before you could really move that a lot. So this is a lot better. As you can see, the centre console is out having some repair. The carpets, these horrible looking carpets, have been removed because I'm going to fit some new bits and pieces in there. It's not meant to be minted up in here like the tricycle, but I do want it reasonably okay, you know. It does want just cleaning up, really. I'm not going to go to the trouble of like renewing all the bezels on here. You never know, I might end up doing it, but that's not the priority at the moment. Let's just get things working and things cleaned up a little bit. Here we are, looking at the driver's side front suspension area, and we can see I've removed the strut because it's here. Now, I did mention in the previous video that there was an issue on this corner where something was clunking and causing a bit of bump steer over potholes. It just wasn't right. So I've had a good look in here. Now if we look, if we try and get close in, look at these bolts, look at the nuts and bolts, and look at the bushes. They're not shot or anything, they don't look like they're completely ruined or broken. I've had crowbars in here and I've tried moving things around. I can't find anything that's obviously loose. But when the previous owner said he'd built this car from like boxes of nuts and bolts and parts, these look original to me, you know. And if we have a look at the anti-roll bar, here's the front anti-roll bar that's been removed. I have got new drop links. If we take a look at these drop links, I mean, look at that surface corrosion on there. They must be the original ones. If he did put these together, if somebody has put these together, they've been put on a long time ago. So I've got new ones for those, and I've got new bushes that fit in here as well for the U-clamps. This is the front strut. Again, this looks like the original part, but I can't find anything untoward with it. I have got some new poly bushes that Adam supplied me with to replace these rubber ones here, but these rubber ones don't look bad. They're not split, they're not all being crushed into oblivion. They look quite serviceable, as does the rubber at the bottom here, where the mounting bolt goes through. That looks fine as well, but there's something wrong somewhere, and I can't spot what it is at the moment. I do know that these struts, you can get these struts, we're talking roughly around about £300 a pair, and this bottom wishbone here, you can get from the Kitten register, complete with new bushes fitted. They're £100 a pair. These are unique to the Kitten. The top wishbones, I believe you can get Vauxhall Viva items, but you need a spacer somewhere around here. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I mean, it looks like they have been serviced. Obviously somebody's been greasing these points. We've got a new track rod end fitted here because the original was just like the other joints, just didn't look like it had been touched. I mean, look at the clamp fitting there. You know, it's years old. I've got new ones of these as well, new ones, because this looks like it's slightly split there, so I bought new ones of these. These are like Mark 1, Mark 2 Escort, so they were easy to find, and obviously, but I'll get those fitted at the same time as when the car goes for its tracking doing, because I've got about £300 earmarked already for a set of 5 tyres and fitting and balancing, because I'm going back to 10-inch wheels at some point. So I don't really want to be spending £300 on a new pair of these if I don't have to. I might just put these in and see how it goes, but there could be something wrong with that internally that I don't know, because I can't spot anything else that's untoward other than everything just being old and obviously not being apart for a long time. I don't know, I can't find anything in there that is obviously loose and clanking about. I've attacked the engine, given the engine a good soaking in this stuff, and it's a good job I've taken the engine out, because when I did, this is the remains of the thrust bearing. There were hardly any meat left on it, and when I pulled the engine out, that just fell out of the metal housing, so that's going to want renewing. There's the engine. It's been soaking in some of that degreaser foam. I've filled some of the holes in so that you don't get water inside. and I'm going to attack it with that. Now normally we'd film this, but maths away, tossing it off.
Keep up the good work, Dave. As you can see, I'm in the town of Filey, enjoying the sunshine. I think it's about time I had an ice cream. Cheers.
Right, here we go. I've given the engine bay a bit of a clean up as well with the jet wash. It's not spotless, not meant to be. It's a lot cleaner than it was. And there's the engine now. Sat on this little barrel. I don't know if this is going to come out, but it will. But it's a lot cleaner than it was. And I've only put it on here because I'm about to drain the oil. And yeah, much cleaner. And one thing I would like to point out is the engine number there. I don't know if you can see that, 102597. That is the original engine to this car, because that is the number that is on the VIN plate. So that's a really good thing. And like I say, we're going to need new parts. That's the remains of the thrust bearing, and look at the state of the remnants of the exhaust manifold gasket. Yeah, I think it was a good idea to pull this engine. The internals I think are okay, but yeah, I think we're gonna need new gaskets and stuff, so let's crack on. But you can see the amount of crap that comes out, look, that's in there. It's like having to clean your ears out. It is. Just got to keep kind of going. It'll be better off now that I've got that drain plug out. It'll be better off when I do get the engine back in, where I can get some coolant in it and leave this plug, let the engine warm up, and then release this plug and just keep filling it with water. The only problem is trying to do this, poke into this hole with the engine in place, is difficult because you've got a hot engine exhaust running near here. It's kind of difficult to do, but this is what you've got to do, and this is the important thing with these old Reliant engines. They do all silt up right back of here. I remember on Hubnut's video, he never got this out. It broke off, or he never tried taking it out. He never took it out, and you can guarantee right back of that cylinder it'll have all been like this. It's just a case of doing your best. I mean, look at that there, with a big globule of silt. Right, here we are then, inside the flat, bottom of the stairs actually, where I keep all my shelves of stuff. I've brought the engine in here now. The next thing that I'm doing, using this special tool that I've made, is to change the valve stem oil seals. This is one of them here. I've already done the first exhaust port. I've done this one, the exhaust port on cylinder 1. This is what fitted. These were the normal standard type of valve seals, valve stem oil seals. These aren't too bad actually, because they're quite supple. They're not rock solid. Sometimes they go rock solid and then start to break up when they've been on for a long time. But the ones that you really want are this type. Basically same diameter, but that little spring there, and what it does is it grips around the base inside. And what I'll do is I'll get this one off. To do this without removing the cylinder head, you need to make this special tool. There's a hole there which bolts to this. Obviously I have to take the rocker shaft off first, so that just comes off. That needs torquing back up properly when it goes back on. And then there's a hole in this iron bar, and then there's a section cut out so that when I lever down, look, I can lever down on this. And obviously this bar is quite long. It doesn't need to be this long, but you do need it to be at least half as long to get decent leverage. And what you've got to do is, before you release the collets in there, those tiny little there's two of them in there, you need to wind the cylinder up. Take the spark plugs out. Well, you've got to take the spark plugs out, because what you do is you wind the piston up near the top, and then you poke in something like this big long screwdriver in here, and then you put it so that when you push down on this, it jams. Can you see how that screwdriver? You've got to use two hands. I can't do it. I can't film while I'm doing this. So basically, if I jam the screwdriver with my hand, I can feel it. I can feel it there. And you need to unlock those collets. And the reason you wind the cylinder up to the top is because if you don't, and you do get those collets out, if that valve drops down into there, then you are goosed, and you're going to have to take this cylinder head off to get that out. Now, I was very, very lucky here, because when I was doing this one, I forgot to wind the piston up, didn't I? And this screwdriver moved, and the valve slid right down. But I was so lucky in that it slid right down and then just rested on the top of the piston. It didn't fall over. And I was able to very carefully wind this engine round and lift it back up through the hole. That were really lucky, because if that had fallen over inside that cylinder, this head would have had to come off. And the whole point of doing this like this is so that I don't have to disturb that head gasket. I don't want to disturb that head gasket because I know this engine runs fine, really. There's no point in doing big jobs like that if you don't have to. Some people might say, oh yeah, but you'll fit the engine and then after 1,000 miles the head gasket goes and you'll wish you'd have done it. Well, so be it. So be it, So I'll just crack on. I'll get this off, and because I can't do it and film at the same time. Okay, yeah. I didn't give MAF permission to go on holiday, viewers, so it's not my fault. I've managed to crack this one open. Sometimes you need to put a bit of pressure on it, and when it goes, it'll go with a bit of a crack. And one collet came out on its own. You'll need like a very fine screwdriver sometimes to get the other one out. It can be awkward doing this first one and this last one for the simple reason that when these get in the way of your levering, this one wasn't too bad. I might have to remove these when I get to this last one. We'll see what happens. Here we see I've got that removed now. This engine is so clean, I don't have to clean all this stuff up. On the last engine I did this on, I had to clean all the collets. They were all covered in thick grime and what have you. So what I do is I basically just dip this in some fresh oil and then push it down over that stem, and when it gets to the bottom it is a bit of a tight press because you've got to get the spring over there, but once it's on there it shouldn't come off there and ride up and down like the others are doing. It won't do that. So, but like I say, you must make sure that can you see how that's being held by the screwdriver? You see the screwdriver wobbling a bit. You've got to make sure that doesn't drop into the cylinder. Otherwise, it's a big job. Another thing about doing this is, I don't know if you can see it. You see how they've got the collet around the top end. When you press down on here, you can see how you get a nice big opening there to get a collet in at the bottom as we're looking at it now. But once you get that collet in there, I kind of need to push it round with a screwdriver when it's in, so that it goes up to the top end. So because obviously this gap where my screwdriver is now at the top, it narrows down when you do this, so you can't get one at the top. You've got to get it in at the bottom, and then I kind of work it round with this screwdriver, and then I have a nice big gap to get one in at the bottom here. That's how I do it anyway. And another advantage of having the bar as long as this is that I can actually put my knee on the bar here and work and lever it down, and then I've got both hands free, one to hold the screwdriver and one to get in there. It is a little bit of an awkward job to do, but I've done this a couple of times, 2 or 3 times before now, and a bit of practice, bit of patience. But whatever you do, don't let that valve drop down. That is the most important thing. Anything else can go wrong, but don't let that go wrong. Well, there we go. That's all 8 done. That last one were a little bit awkward. As you can see, I had to turn this upside down. This is a 90-degree angle bar. That is pretty solid in there. And I didn't want to try and force it and strip the thread in the head. So what I did was this bracket, I bent that over. I don't know what that bracket's for exactly, but I know I won't be using it. But when I've released this, I'll bend it back to where it was. I just didn't want to disturb any of these head studs, any of these head nuts, and that there, like I say, different metals. It's like the drain plug in the head. If you really try and force that, you could end up with more than you bargained for. So all 8 are done now. It's just a case of torquing this back up and fitting a new gasket for the rocker cover, and that's that little bit done. Just one little additional on this. You'll notice I've put a rag in this hole here. You can remove these if you want, remove each one of these push rods, but you've got to try and remember what order they're in so they go back in the same holes. I've not bothered removing them. The reason I've put that in there is because sometimes when these crack off, it only did it on one of these, I think it did it on this one, sometimes when they crack off, a collet might jump out unexpectedly and you don't want it going down any of these holes. You would be unlucky if it did, but sod's law. So, you know, just be careful of that. Or you could put some over this when it cracks so they can't jump out. A lot of them come off easy, but it is a bit of an awkward and fiddly job when you've not done it before. But it's taken me about 20 minutes to do this. So, you know, once you get used to it, it's not bad. Yeah. Right, well, that's it then for Kitten Project Part 2. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is more of that phone footage to come in Part 3. But Bath will be back to film that properly next time around. So, like I say, just wanted to make sure that that we didn't miss stuff, or that I didn't miss recording stuff that I'd done. So that's where we are with Kitten Project Part 2. That's the end. And see you all again. Ta-ra.